so here's 8.2. This unit is about the Enlightenment, so that's the middle of the three main events that you were introduced to about in 8.1. So we have the Enlightenment basically was a new way of thinking about, so they had a new way of thinking about the world, mostly in that they were thinking about politics, how government should be ran, and how people should be treated. So Enlightenment thinkers are people who are trying to make, they're basically like progressives as we know them today. They're basically people who are trying to make things better for people, more equal, more fair, more democratic, and more fair is basically the best way to do that, talk about that. So this was all started by someone named John Calvin. He was a member of the Catholic Church, but he really didn't like the answers that the Catholic Church gave him. He told people that if the king has an order and it goes against God's order, so it's not the same one, it kind of goes against it, then we should reject the king's orders and only follow God's order. But there's a problem with that, because if you watch my video on 8.1, you will remember that kings were supposed to have gotten their power from the God. So how are they supposed to have different orders if the king gets his orders or his, position from God, right? How does that work? So he started questioning all of that. And so he was one who started what is called the Protestant Reformation, where there are many people like Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther, who saw something that they didn't like in their religion and basically left and made their own new religion. Martin Luther, he didn't like the fact that in the Catholic Church at that time, if you had a sin, you would have to pay an indulgence, which is basically money, to have that sin forgiven so that you can go to heaven after you die. The problem is, if you're rich, there's no problem in sinning because you have lots of money to just pay off for your indulgences and you'll still go to heaven. If you're poor, then either you have to sin none at all or you're not going to heaven. So he saw the injustice and the unfairness and how corrupt the Catholic Church at the time was with indulgences, and they have later rescinded that and they don't do that anymore. But they did do that at one point. So he left and he started Lutheranism, a different religion. So this Protestant Reformation was mostly they're questioning their religions, they're starting new religions, and they are questioning the validity and the effectiveness of their political governments. So that's what was going on in the Enlightenment. Let's see. I'm going to show you that I have this linked in the end of this video, this document, this right here. So there are three different types of governments that were being talked about at the time. Absolute monarch was basically what was going on at the beginning of Enlightenment. The kings and queens, they had full power and people didn't really have a lot of rights. They didn't have any say, they just had to deal with it. And there were people who definitely weren't cared for by the monarchy. When the Enlightenment came, there were some people who turned to being an enlightened monarch, which basically means they still have full power, but they do give more rights to people. And they do care more about their subjects than absolute monarchs did, or how monarchs typically did, cared for them. And then we have liberalism, which is the more democratic government style. This is where you don't have a monarchy, you don't have a king or queen, instead you'd have a president. People have the power to rule, so this is like elections. They vote for people to be in charge, but the power comes from them because they're the ones who voted them in. If they don't like them anymore, they vote them out. So that's what liberalism is all about, popular sovereignty, where people have the power, and then power of the people to vote them in, and then also being able to revolt if the government is not actually, keeping things fair and being good. So those are three different differences of political systems that they started talking about and started changing in the Enlightenment. Liberalism was definitely a brand new one. Enlightened monarch wasn't exactly new, but most monarchs didn't do this before. Most monarchs were like this before. Some turned into this, and then some, in the case of the United States, one of the best results of the Enlightenment was revolutions and people having a liberal type of government, or a republic type of government, as we call it today. So there are some Enlightenment thinkers, these guys down here. Sorry, I don't have pictures of them. You can read these when you look at these, but basically they had their ideals. The ones who liked liberalism, they said we should, people are good. We should be able to revolt if we want to. We should have freedom of speech and freedom of religion, separation of powers, which is like not one person should have all the power. It should be like separated. Right now we have 3 branches of government, not one branch of government. Rule of law, everybody has to follow the law. So the Enlightenment thinkers, they are the ones who basically gave the American colonists the ideas of, hey, this is good. We should listen to these guys because this seems fair. We don't like tyrant King George III from England. We want someone here. We want someone to represent us. We want to have a say in what happens in our country. We don't want to just follow instructions blindly. So the American Revolution was the first successful attempt at liberalism, or republic, having a republic where people have the power. It almost failed many times. Our government did, but it was successful. The French Revolution, which happened right after the American Revolution, it was successful at first, but then it died. So ultimately was not successful because they went back to monarchy. It wasn't until much later that they finally became a republic again and stayed a republic. So we were the first country to actually become a republic and have it be completely successful. So that's the difference between the American Revolution and the French Revolution. So again, just so you know, guys, remember this, result of the Enlightenment is revolutions, American and French revolutions. They created a representative or republican form of government. And these are some of the guys that, the American colonists, they would read pamphlets from these guys and listen to what they say. And that's where they got a lot of their ideas when they were making the Constitution for our country. Last thing for 8.2, the Enlightenment really helped, or was helped by the scientific revolution, because if you remember from 8.1, people started asking questions from their religions and trying to find proof that things were happening and new ways to think about things. So that kind of evolved a little bit into the Enlightenment, where they're just thinking about different things now, more political lifestyles, how people should be treated. So the scientific revolution really helped that. Also, just get my laptop. Both the scientific revolution and Enlightenment were trying to find ways to answer questions that religions could not. So people were really just kind of pushing it. So the reason why I really like these areas and why the scientific revolution, Enlightenment were some of the biggest things that happened in our history that really helped us get better, was that they basically succeeded in changing life for people, because they were just questioning things. They were just questioning why, how come, what is the reason? Why is this going on? What is the real answer? Is it just because you say it? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? So these are some of the most powerful questions that someone could ever ask. And these are the questions that they were asking during the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. And the effects more fairness, more equality, better life. People are more happy than they used to be. Yes, sure, life is more complicated than it used to be. That's just what happens with technology, but we were able to have so many big things because people just ask questions. So please do not feel like you should not ask questions. Always ask questions, because questions are some of the most powerful things that you could ever do. So that's 8.2.